Alright guys, how you doing this morning, this afternoon, whatever it is where you're at. We're just doing some testing today, so we're gonna jump into the game here and get some things started. I think we're gonna buy a couple set of wheels and do some testing for the All-Star race that's coming up on Wednesday. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'm not riding today. Just hanging out and gonna do a little playing around. Got a few little different streaming tools going on. So you can see we've got two different screens up right now. We're just gonna focus on the one to begin with. We are world hacking to London, and we've got a sim running. Trying to wake up my cable device. There we go. I found a way to get the world hack working and get multiple simulators running while I'm really short one ANT Plus device. So we're leveraging the cable device to convert one to Bluetooth so we can do our testing. We're gonna ride the London course. I think we're gonna do the Greater London Loop. Greatest London Loop, probably. Yeah. Reverse. So we're gonna ride over to Keith Hill is what we're gonna do here. We want to test some stuff on the Keith Hill after party. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my rider moving on the Greatest London Loop, riding toward the hill. And new change in Zwift, so you guys are aware. If you hit A and T, I can no longer hit T and open the menu here. So I actually have to go in here and unpair my power meter to stop my rider, to then go into the drop shop and do any work here. So a little bit of frustration there, but what we are going to do today, we're going to buy 2 sets of wheels, and we're going to go test those wheels. Yeah, Frank, I can't hit the A. When the pairing screen's up, you can't hit the T key anymore. I figured that out the other day. Yeah, so you physically have to stop. I don't see any... Am I overlooking it? Where's Zip? I want Zip. Oh, I'm in the frame shop. Yeah, so I think that might be partially what they had to do to patch the error that we're having when you hit the T key and it forced you back to the rider menu, maybe. It might have been part of that patch. We're going to buy the 454 wheels, guys. And we're going to equip those. And we're also going to buy the forced to the right. I'm not sure. We're gonna confirm purchase those. I'm not sure. I'm a little feverish, actually, so I'm not sure what I was talking about. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it was. I think it might be... So it used to be that if you came into the game and you hit the T key and you hit close, it would take you back to the ride screen, and that was a bug. And I'm wondering if they fixed that. So now when you hit the A and the T... I wonder if this wasn't part of that fix on the last update, so... so now we want to go in. We are going to ride the Zwift Aero bike. We're going to ride it with the, let's start with the baseline 858 here. So Zwift Aero bike 858, we're going to, I want to do something real quick. We're going to save and exit. Even though we don't really want to save that ride, we'll have to go delete that one. But I'm doing this to make sure my updates get into the game. And then now on my second computer, we want to log into Zwift as well. We're having some fun here. So Zwift didn't come up on the screen that I wanted it to. Does anybody know how to move it? Got it. Bang. Okay. We are testing. We are testing. So, what I wanted to do a little study on last week, we tested, what did we test last week? Last week we tested the 808, or the 858s versus the lightweight wheels. I gotta keep booting up the cable device here. Yeah, I got it, Matt. Thank you. So we are going to ride London, Greatest London Loop. We're going to firewall up here. Okay, we are firewalled up on this one. And this rider is on 858 and the Zwift Aero bike. And he's going to go head over and do a hill. Ah, that's not what I wanted. Alright. Greatest London Loop. We need to firewall up on this machine too. Not sure why the Zwift keeps going to the other screen, but we're gonna firewall up here. I use a simulator, an ANT Plus simulator program. It's pretty easy to find out there, and it just, we're setting it at about 5.1, 5.2 watts per kilogram. Then we're gonna enable this rule. We're gonna pull up Zwift. Not sure why this Zwift keeps minimizing on me. And I don't want that to happen. So, oh, what a hassle. We're gonna keep working on this here. All right. We need to unpair for a minute so we can change. We're going to change the wheels in this one to be the 808s. So we want to test 808s, 858s, and we're going to test the 454s and the NVs as well. And want to make sure. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to test these wheels and see how they go up the mountain here. So what we're looking for today, so we've already tested the lightweight wheels versus the 858s, and they were a virtual tie up the hill. But what we're looking at here is we're going from one extreme to the other. The most aero fastest wheels we've got are the 858s. We can't use the disc in the Super League, versus the lightweights, which give up all the aero for just weight. And what I did when I looked at a little bit of the testing that has been done on the wheels, these 454 wheels, and I think it's the Envies, the 7.8 Envies, I think it is. They're pretty aero and pretty light, both. They test really, really well overall, but I think they're a good balance. So what I want to test is, going up this hill, do they beat the 858s by any significant margin? Because they do have a lot more aero to them. Could they give us a big advantage on the hill of a few seconds? So just so you guys know, I am a little bit under the weather today, which is why I'm not riding. And I'm not racing on Wednesday is the current plan. I've had a fever for over a day now, so being expected to race on Wednesday is probably not going to work out too well for me. I'm eating today. I'm feeling a little bit better today, but I still do have some pretty significant flu symptoms going on, so I am out for this week, unless desperate measures are called upon for this week's race. So we're here just to do some testing. We should be able to do this in 2 passes. We're gonna go up. We're going up right now. The upper left screen is writing 858s. The lower left screen is writing 808s, and we're gonna go up Keith Hill and test those 2. We'll come back down and do it again. I'm trying to figure out where's my shadow coming from. Not sure where the shadow's coming from. Maybe from underneath. Yeah. On my shirt. A couple other things we are testing today. We have a new kind of stream set up a little bit. We're doing different encoding. Did they fix it? Frank, I hadn't actually seen that. That's awesome news, actually. That's and that we can talk about that a little bit more and go do a little looking if. Okay, I rode the Norseman Saturday morning, and there was definitely still a draft. But they did push an update at some point, and that could have made a difference. I did just get a little bit of an encoding error. Checking to see. Hey, Porch Cat, what's up, man? Checking, we're gonna bump this down just a little bit. Turn down the video just a little bit. Are you riding a recumbent today? Yeah. I wish I was riding something. I'd not got the health to ride anything, so we're testing wheels today. We did also another change for today on our second computer. We installed an NDI, a different way to NDI, which is basically the lower left screen that you see right here, right there, is coming across an NDI, a network connection. And that new way of NDI appears to be getting me a much better screen quality. So the lower version of Zwift right now is on a second PC that's NDIing across. The upper screen is the one that's directly on my big computer, and you're not seeing a big quality difference in the upper and lower Zwift right now. So I think we're getting the NDI things pretty squared away, which is really exciting too, that we're able to get those squared away like that. So I'm excited about that part. I'm actually going to add a sharpening, just a little bit of sharpening. to that lower. So he put a fix in for the 1 and 7 p.m. Norseman events. So I wonder, it's probably impossible unless we watch somebody who streamed those races to really get an idea if that made a big difference or not. Is it really obvious in the power and the results? But that is great news, because I think if anybody's been paying attention since they've done the drop shop, something else has become a little bit more obvious out there. When Zwift has got TT events, they're forcing people to TT bikes, and what they're actually doing is they're forcing you to a specific bike. It's not a category of TT bikes. Now that we've got multiple TT bikes available, the expectation is we should be able to join a TT only event and pick a TT bike. Well, what they're still actually forcing you to just the Zwift TT bike. So there's been a little bit of complaint and grumbling out there that when we're buying with our drops these TT frames like the P5X, and we can't use them. We can't race with them because when you enter a TT, they're forcing us to the Zwift TT bike. So there's been a little bit of complaining about that, but I think these two topics come together, the Norseman topic and the TT bike topic, because I think what they're doing, the intent of the Norseman, which is to turn off the draft. If you just turn off the draft for TT events going forward rather than forcing a bike, if they get that function working and they get it working right, which it sounds like from what Frank's sharing here that maybe they did, if they got that function working right, they no longer need to force people to time trial bikes in a TT race. You can still jump in there and ride a road bike if you want. It will then be up to the user to pick their bike, because no matter what bike they pick, they'll lose the draft. So they should be able to then create a TT event with no drafting, but allow people to have completely open bike selection. So I hope that that is a cure for maybe that problem there. Frank, were you able to see, was that fix that they proposed there, or that they worked on, is it confirmed to be good? I would love to see that it is good. So these should be about 10 and a half minute climbs here that we're doing with these riders. So we're gonna test here for about 30 minutes or so. Should be 2 passes on the hill. I say 2 passes for each computer. I've got 2 computers running, so we should be able to do. We're gonna test a total of 4 wheel sets here. I think the hope is maybe to figure out what's going to be potentially, in a race scenario, what's potentially going to be the best wheel set to ride up this hill. This hill is pretty steep consistently, but it has a flat section at the top, and it's got a flat section about a third of the way up that you do get a little bit of speed on. So I think the aero part to the 858 was enough of an advantage, especially at the pace that we're riding this in race. And I'm trying to simulate a pace similar to what we'll be riding in the race. We'll actually be riding this a little faster than this pace in the race. Very few people, I think, will just average 5 or 5.1 up this hill during the race. I expect a 5.5 average for probably a good portion of the racers getting up this hill. So the faster they're going, or the harder they're riding, the more the aero is going to come into play over the weight as well. So I think the faster you go, the more you're... Okay. I wonder what that trick was. I wonder if he forced him onto a different bike or something. Maybe he did the TT bike fix. We'll see. We'll have to check out the results of that. At least they did confirm. Yeah. Sorry to hear that, Bruce Games Rides. It is a bummer deal. A lot of us are fighting it. I hate that it's happening. They're gonna get it taken care of. Or they're gonna do it right by the customers, I believe. But it is very frustrating, and disappointing that it ends up that way. I would say that they probably do not have the drafting figured out for the Norsemen. I'm looking at the results for the 1 o'clock, and the winner was 4.8. Second place, just 20 seconds off of him, was 4.0. So 8 watts, or 0.8 watts per kilogram difference between first and second, and with only a 20-second gap. Third place had more watts per kilogram than second place. Fourth place had more watts per kilogram than third and second place, and they were minutes behind. So I would expect a fairly even distribution of power to finishing position, and it's just not there. So it looks like we've got our first set of rider coming up to the banner now. So we're going to get ready to document. This rider that's coming in right now is riding the 858s. We're going to grab a time from them and turn them right back down around and go back down the hill. And then the other rider we've got going in the lower screen is riding the 808s right now. So we've got 858s coming across the line in just a matter of seconds. And we're going to do, it's at 10:27.97. $10:27.97 is our 858 time. So guys, here is the frustration to the last update of Zwift. My go-to for changing wheels or anything like that is always to hit the A key and then the T key to pop up the menu. You can no longer do A and then T. If you open the T menu, you can't open the A menu. If you open the A menu, you can't open the T menu. So you actually have to open the A menu, unpair the power source in this case, and then go to the T menu. We're going to switch this guy over to... let's switch him over to the 454s. And then we got to go back into the A menu, pair up the cable, and we'll ride him down the hill. We've got our other one coming in now on our 808s. Let's see what our 808s times come in as. We got about 30 seconds to go on him. Based on the test before, I actually expect the 808s to be a decent bit slower here. Maybe 2 seconds, 3 seconds slower than the 858s here. And I think from reading, these other two wheels that we're going to test should outperform the 808s. The question is there enough vertical in them and enough weight savings that they'll actually outperform the 858s? I think that's really going to be the question, is these second two sets of wheels are the ones that I really am interested to see the results. I expect these 808s to be slower than the 858s up the hill here. I think that's what was found in basically all of the testing that was done. So we're going to let it cross through the line. We're crossed through the line, 8:28.76. It's exactly less than 1 second, actually. Just about 1 second even is the gap there. So we have to do the same thing on this one. We're going to have to go in here and unpair. And then we'll go into our wheel set. And we're going to switch over to the Envy wheels now. We're going to do the Envy 7.8s on this bike. Go back into the pairing screen. Pair them up again. And off we go. So Bruce Games Rides, have you heard back from Wahoo yet on that? Have you decided whether you want to do the fix kit or just wait for them to send you a new trainer? Look at my FPS, guys. You see that FPS? You can't see the FPS. I'm getting like 160 in the game right now. It does look like the new NDI setup is working really well. My biggest complaint to the new NDI setup, and I'll show you this, like, it's a desktop capture versus a game capture is my only thing that I need to do a little investigation on. So this lower left-hand side of the screen that's got Zwift on it is a desktop capture. So I'm running a full screen version of Zwift on the second PC. See, there we go. It just minimized on me. So that's my one frustration with that is it's a desktop capture rather than a game capture. To try to simplify the desktop capture, I set it up as a full screen version of Zwift, and it's been kind of a hassle doing that. So I need to do a little investigation to see if I can do some sort of application or game type capture with these NDI tools that I'm using outside of OBS, because the quality and the performance of it is much improved over the plugins within OBS right now. I'm actually not even seeing any real network load at all, which is really surprising. I take that back. If I go over to my network performance, it's receiving about 60 Mbps over the Ethernet right now. That's going to be that NDI feed coming over, but that's still plenty doable on a home-based internet setup. So this guy's basically at the bottom of the hill. We're going to let him get around the corner here just a little bit. We want to make sure that he gets plenty of time to get back up to speed going up the hill. So I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to drop his featherweight, let him get back up to speed before we get to the KOM line again. So he's coming around the corner. Man, that featherweight burns fast. So anybody got any opinions on power-ups now? There's a lot of power-up talk out there. Sounds like Zwift is looking at power-ups, maybe making some power-up changes. What do you think? What should they do? What shouldn't they do? What would you like to see different? Anybody got any opinions? So how much weight drop is the Okay, Frank. And name it the Cofidus, right? Is that it? It took me a second, but oh shoot, Frank. I wondered how long it'd be before that topic came up too. That's a bummer. Thankfully, they're not impacting the race, even with that. So, I'll leave that one alone. Yeah, absolutely, Frank. One thing that I found interesting, and I will say, I agree with Shane Miller's points in that video. I don't necessarily agree with his passion or intensity toward it as much. There was probably only 1 or 2 riders that I haven't looked, to be honest with you. I would say anybody over like a 4 kilogram change, 3 or 4, needs to, you need to rattle their cage a little bit. Like, come on, like that's too much, right? But the guys that are 2 kilograms, you can't beat on them. I mean, that's 5 pounds. Yeah, I do agree that, like, these guys, it's their job. They need to do the best they can to weigh in at the mark. Like, it's an integrity thing. I get that. I agree with that. But, and it is a little, it's concerning that they consistently were over. Like, everyone was over. What I will say for the community is, very few times have I seen scenarios at our live events that are community-based live events that these things have popped up. So I found that interesting, that they, all these amateurs at home, they're the ones weight doping, all that. We get the pros in here, it's going to be, it's all going to be different. Well, in reality, if you go back and look at E-Crits and CVR World Cups that we've done now, you can probably line up about 8 or 10 events. I don't think we've had over 1 or 2 instances where somebody weighed in more than 4 or 5 kilograms over. So the fact that we're hitting that with the pros involved, multiple scenarios in like the first time, and we've probably lined up 60, maybe 50, 60 people on scales from the community and haven't seen it that widespread. I say kudos to the community, number one. Like, the people that are and maybe it's the people that are doing this just know better than to show up at the live events, right? Maybe they're just hiding at home. I don't know. But kudos to those that have had. And Zimmerman, for sure. Like, he was probably one of the ones that was closest to spot on. I think he was honest about it. I think he weighed in a pound and a half high, right? Like, and that's nothing. Yeah, that's nothing, right? I kind of joked about it. I've had the flu for 2 days. I need to go do a Zwift transparency video, right? I've eaten 2 bowls of chicken noodle soup in the last 48 hours, and I've thrown up a handful of times. I can probably weigh in a kilogram or 2 light now. But that wouldn't be right? I mean, like, let me get settled back in. If I do lose 4 or 5 pounds and consistently keep it off for the next week once I'm healthy again, and then we'll look at that. But it's a. Now, on the other side of it, like, you look at the pros, and they may not take it as seriously because they haven't been burnt into the weight doping sagas of Zwift yet. You think of other pro players and things like that, like the trading cards and that, it has height and weight on it and things like that. Like, they may not look at it as that big of a deal. Somebody just grabbed their information off of stat sheets and shoved it into the program, and off they went. I really don't know. I don't feel like anyone was getting I don't feel like anyone that was super competitive has shown up with a significant weight advantage at the live events. They're all a little bit high here on this last weigh-in, but none of the ones that really impacted the races were significantly high. Nothing worth that I would throw a big stink about. Now, I would say that they stepped on the scales at the live events. They reset their weight for those live events. I would be concerned if very many of them swapped their weights back to the lower weights now that they're, like, they need to accept the weight that they weighed in at the live event for the rest of the league. Right or wrong, even if they can go home and weigh a kilogram or so less, for an integrity and transparency sake, I think they need to, for the remainder of the All-Star League, they need to keep their weight as they weighed in at the live event. That's my opinion. The burrito, JVB, the what do we call it? The breakaway burrito. The breakaway burrito would basically, it would, no one can draft you while the burrito is active. So what you would do is you would drop the burrito and you would sprint down a hill. They couldn't draft you. So you just go for maximum velocity with the burrito. Nobody can grab your wheel. If they want to keep up with you, they've got to match your power. It basically puts you undraftable for a period of time. It was a lot of fun to use. You used it very tactfully, right? You know, you used it to attack a race. You drop the burrito and you sprint. I don't know why they did away with it. There was a lot of it caused a lot of problems in group rides because people would just burn it going down a hill, just hit it and burn it. But then the pack would start chasing them, and then people weren't draftable. People were getting dropped, and so there was a lot of complaints about it from a social ride perspective. So I think that's why they did away with it being live in the game. But I actually thought it was, from a racing perspective, I think it's a great one. I think it would be a great one to put back in play, especially with the new power-up rules where you can't power-up farm, what we're calling it. You can't farm a power-up to start a race. So if I end up finishing a race with a burrito at 1 kilometer to go, I'm going to drop the burrito and I'm going to go. And I'm going to go like hell. And nobody can draft my wheel. Nobody can grab my wheel. Somebody's going to have to match my pace until that burrito expires to get my draft. So if someone's coming with me, they have to commit with me to come along. And I think it could change up the scenario, especially probably in like a double draft style race. In a double draft style race, that draft is so strong, people are able to hold on to you so easily if they can get your wheel, and that burrito would do away with that. So it was a fun power up. I'm looking forward to some power up changes. I haven't been imaginative enough or creative enough to think about what I would want different as far as different abilities in power-ups. With the existing power-ups, like you say, JVB, like you brought up there, I would like to see the breakaway burrito turned back on. I would like to see the feather power up to be extended. It needs to be on for a longer duration. It needs to be more of an advantage to use the feather. The feather's not advantageous enough. And the arrow helmet, I'm torn on what to do with the arrow helmet. The one thing I know about the arrow helmet is it needs to be dialed back. But how you dial it back is where I'm struggling. Do you turn down the strength of the helmet, or do you turn down the time on the helmet, or both? I'm leaning more toward turn down the time of the helmet, not necessarily the strength. Make the helmet burn really fast. Like, if you're going to sprint with the helmet at the end of a race, it's only going to last you 200 meters. Like, you can't drop it with a half a K to go and make it to the finish line. Yeah, I almost think that the helmet and the feathers timing in the game needs to be flip-flopped. That the feather needs to be long like the helmet, and the helmet needs to be short like the feather. I think they need to flip-flop the time on that. I'd probably like to see that change first. And then if the arrow helmet is still too overpowered, I don't think it will be. But if it's still too overpowered or too easy at the end of a race, then maybe dial it back a little bit more. Okay, here we got coming in now. We've got the 454s coming up to the line now. And the Envies actually aren't far off, guys. The Envies are the wheel, I think. Look at the ETA. And the Envies tested really well on mixed courses too. So here's the dilemma in races, guys. The 454 beat the 858 by half a second. All right, and here we got coming in the other account. These are the NVs, and it's going to be even faster, maybe? Maybe not. 10, what do we got? 2759. So the NVs and the, so they're all super close. But the fastest was actually the 454s at 1027.56. And then next was the NVs at 3/100ths of a second slower, 1027.59. The 858s are about 4/10ths of a second slower, 1027.97, and then the 808s at 1028.76. What this makes me want to do now is, where can we test a super flat lap? Is there anywhere on course that we truly have like pancake flat with lap times? I don't think we do. The closest we've got is either the Volcano or, yeah, London Loop's not flat. You don't get an orange jersey. You've got to be really precise on starting and ending your clock if we're going to test on something like Richmond, right? We could go maybe test on Richmond, but we're going to have to run our own timer. We're going to have to like grab clock times to do it. What I'm thinking about here is how much faster is the 858 on the flat, because it's slower up the hill. In a race scenario, so this is the race scenario we've got a 454 that's faster up the hill by 4/10ths of a second. Over the course of the race, it might actually be a touch slower, but if I'm in a race, I'm not getting dropped on the flat, I'm getting dropped on a hill, right? And if I can make the hill better, can I sacrifice a little something on the flat? So do you end up, are you better off? And I mean, guys, we're talking about such small marginal gains at this point, but you know, is a 454, especially when we get to like mountain climbing, is a 454 better to race on than the 858, because it might save me over a mountain. It might save me 3 or 4 seconds, and it's not like I'm going to get dropped riding one wheel over the other getting to the mountain. So are you actually more effective in a race? Hey, thanks for the raid, Matt Jazz. I appreciate that. Are you more effective in a race? That's an interesting concept. Hey, Andrew the man, thanks. So we've been doing a little testing here today, guys, trying to figure out wheels and the appropriate wheels to ride in a race. So trying to decide, we know for sure that the 454s and the NVs, what were they? The NV7? The NV7.8 and the 454 Zips are faster up Keith Hill than the 858s by about 4/10ths of a second, almost a half a second faster. Half a second at the end of the race, a half a second cresting over the crown. It may not be much. It doesn't sound like much, but it could be something at the end of a race. I was hoping for more, actually. If it's probably insignificant in the outcome of a race between these four wheel sets at this point, the 858, the 454, the NV 7.8, and the 808s. Although the 808s are actually a full second and a half slower than the 454s and the NVs. So they would be the least likely choice. But it does... So in this particular race that we're getting set up for on Wednesday, it probably isn't going to matter much. But I think in racing overall, you have to start considering now some of these fairly light but very aero wheels in a drafting style race might actually be better to race on than the flat out fastest wheel. If they make me just a little bit better on the hill and a little bit less aero, and these 7.8s are a good example of that, and the 454s, they're still really aero, but they're significantly lighter than the 858s. Could that mean the difference between a second or 5 seconds climbing a hill, a big hill? If you're climbing a mountain, Keith Hill, Leith Hill, if you start saving 1 or 2 seconds on the hill, could that be the difference to making it or breaking it on a hill versus an overall faster time? Because those are the critical points in a race. So if it's I don't know that it's ever going to make a difference at the end of a race until you get to the mountains. But in theory, I think it might be a better wheel to race with in most scenarios. So I don't know. Something to ponder. We got anything else going on out there today, guys? I think I'm about done here. Probably gonna call it quits. I need to check here. It's 5 till 1. Make sure I don't have any sure I don't have a meeting coming up. I don't know if I'll be back. I probably won't be back at all today. Not feeling the greatest today. We'll see, maybe this evening get on and do something. Probably not ride, though. And, yeah, the lightweights are awful. We did the same test, JVB, with the lightweights. And the lightweights basically tied the 858s up this hill. Or were just maybe a tenth of a second slower. But the 454s and the NVs beat the lightweights. So... but yeah, when you get on the flats, the lightweights are no good at all. You lose quite a bit of time on those. So it's finding ones with a good balance. So alright guys, looking at the two screens right now. Let's get a little bit of opinion here. Which looks better? They'll be faster. I was just curious if you guys could tell on the preview or in the actual stream. If you felt one stream looked better than one version of Zwift looked better than the other, the upper or the lower, if you can tell a significant difference. I can tell you they are running on significantly different hardware. One of them is running directly on the streaming PC. The other one is running on a secondary PC that is much, much, much less of a setup. But I'm actually pretty impressed with the secondary PC and its setup right now. Like, you want them both to be at the same... You make them both the same... I'm not sure what you mean by both the same view. I mean, they're pretty much the same... They're a little bit farther apart on the course. Let me see if I can actually like turn one around. They're pretty close to the same location now. One's going faster than the other, so. Top probably is a little more stretched, yeah. I don't know if I can, I probably can't fix that without really messing with them right now. The aspect ratio is a little bit different on them, the way I've got them set up right now. But picture quality, like quality of the trees and the sky and that, I'm not seeing a huge difference in them natively on my screen. What we have, just so you guys know, the top screen is running directly on my streaming PC. It is currently running at about 140 FPS in that upper screen. That's running on a GTX 1080 graphics card. They're both set to high quality in game. The lower one is an NDI feed from a secondary computer. That secondary computer is running a GTX 1050 Ti. We won't go that hard, Frank. Nobody will go that hard this time. But yeah, I do think the leaders will go 6'3", 6'4". This is essentially going to be the same length of time, maybe a little bit shorter, a minute or two shorter than what they went up the mountain a couple weeks ago when I raced. I'm actually glad that you guys can't see a difference between these two, because I was struggling with the quality of my NDI feeds, and I did a little changing today, and that bottom feed is coming across the network cable to my streaming PC, and we're really not losing any quality on it, which is fantastic. I'm really excited about that, actually. I think you're going to see the same thing that we saw going up the mountain a couple weeks ago. Yeah, so maybe we need to come back and do this test at 6'4", 6'5", push it a little bit, and see if the arrow starts taking over. That's a good point. It'll be curious to see. I think you'll see something similar to what we saw on the mountain a couple weeks ago, as far as how much they're going to flog one another getting up this hill. The trick is, at the top of this hill is the end of the race. So it's not get to the top of the mountain and then ride together to sprint at the end. It's get to the top of this hill to win the race. We won't have the couple of kicks leading up to the hill to break riders off. It's going to be a flat ride up to that point. So that is one thing that is going to be quite a bit different. We're closing out of Zwift now. Now we got to get out there and earn some more drops, guys. When I get feeling better, we got to get earning some more drops, because we're spinning them, buying all these wheels, and doing all this testing. But for today, I think that's going to wrap it up. Just hanging out a little bit, testing wheels, seeing what's up. Maybe tomorrow we'll be up to doing a little more detailed stuff. That's kind of where I'm struggling with it, Matt, right now. I'm going to lean toward, I want a wheel that's going to be better on the climb. If it's not significantly worse on the flat, I want one that's going to get me up that climb a little bit faster. Because in the end, I'm not going to struggle getting to the hill. You're going to be struggling getting up the hill. So if you're ending at the top of the mountain, or if you're ending at the top of a hill, and it's going to be more than a 4 or 5 minute climb to finish a race, I'm probably going to want a wheel set that's going to get me to it's going to be the fastest on the hill, and pretty much ignore all other aspects of the wheel at that point. That's probably where, assuming that it's a virtual guarantee that you will make it to the base of the hill with a pack. Right, yeah, right. You end at the top of the Alp. You want the best. You want what's going to get you to the top of the hill the fastest. That's where you're going to be on the limit, making time. Going to be so low. That's where you want to make the time. So, now we did find in the Norseman the other day. The TT bike was crazy fast compared to the guys riding road bikes that weren't drafting. So when you get into an undraftable race like a Norseman, a time trial, even on the hills, I would struggle a little bit with it. Can you gain enough in speed on the flats with the time trial bike to be faster overall on a race like that? I think that would be an interesting test. You would be significantly slower, probably a minute slower up the Alp, but can you gain a minute getting to the Alp on that bike? And you also have to remember, what's hard with these tests in that scenario is, and maybe we just need to ride a race like that at some point. Like, if the Norseman really does get the drafting turned off properly, it's like we need to set up 2 instances of Zwift, pair it to my power meter, and ride them both reading the same one. Because the blob rules, but if you don't have the blob, if you ride something like the Norseman, does the TT bike become faster if you can get something like the P5X that's just crazy fast on the flats? Can you gain 40 or 50 seconds or a minute on the flats that negates the climbing gains? I think there's potential there, and I think that would be something interesting to test. The other part of that is how you pace a race. A TT bike, for example, is so fast on the flat, like, you're not going to ride a Norseman at a set 300 watts, right? You're gonna go harder on the hills. You're gonna relax on the downhills, and when you start doing that, and you have differences in aero and bikes and things like that, it might be tough to figure out which one's going to be faster over the length of a race. Other than ones that are true Alp top finishes, I believe a TT bike is always going to be the preferred bike in the Norseman, unless you're finishing on the Alp. That's my opinion. That's where I would put my money if the draft is turned off. The TT bike should be faster over the entire course on any of the other hills out there, or any of the other courses out there that they're riding the Norseman on, other than the Fire and Ice, the one that finishes at the top of the Alp. I think the one that finishes at the top of the Alp, you might be faster still on a road bike. So it would be interesting to test that. If they have the Norseman fixed, I'm not convinced they've got it fixed based on the results that I looked at. I'll do a little more looking around to see if somebody streamed that, or if somebody maybe has some video evidence of that. But if they have the Norseman drafting fixed, I will be curious to maybe test that, where we can ride a Norseman, get 2 instances of Zwift open, get one of them on a road bike, one of them on a TT bike, and see how that works out for us. So that would be interesting to do. I think we could figure out how to do it, and have some fun with it. The blob, we talk about the blob as just the drafting pack. The Peloton on Zwift, we call it a blob. It was something that I think Ian or somebody mentioned early on. It's just, you think of it as like, it's like this own little mutant thing that creates out there on track that's just a little outside of reality, speed-wise, and so we have a little fun with it, calling it a blob. So what do we have out here? We got a lot of people streaming. We got Francois Racing. I think we're gonna kick it over to Coppix over here, getting a race going, give him a raid. And I'm going to get over and get some work done, and then relax a little bit this afternoon. try to get feeling a little bit better. I'll be back tomorrow at least doing something. Not sure that I'll be back much today. We'll be here in the team car on Wednesday for the race, and I am not racing on Wednesday is the plan right now, getting over this illness. So, but we'll, thanks, man. We're on the upside of it, so we're going to kick it over to Francois now. Hope everybody has a good day. Thanks for hanging out with me, and we'll be back soon.